Good afternoon. I'm really delighted to be here, to be talking to you. And thank you for the invitation to speak at this very prestigious center. I would like just to ask you a question. How many of you know Morocco? Wow. That's good. That's very impressive. How many of you have visited Morocco? Ah, that's nice. Wow. And what kind of language is spoken in Morocco?
French.
3 languages. What are they?
French.
Then Arabic.
And then
Berber. Tamazight. Ah, great. Can you give her a great applause? All right. I would love to just speak to you, and then please interrupt me anytime you want to if you have any questions, if there are any things that you don't understand. So I would like this to be conversation and then an interaction with you rather than a really full-fledged kind of academic presentation. I would like just to talk to you a little bit about Morocco, but also about the economics of Morocco before zooming on to, is English okay with everyone, or shall I shift to German? No. Otherwise, we can do Arabic. How about that? So I would like to just preface my speech by saying that Morocco is a country that is considered to be. There was a very nice metaphor of Hassan II, who was the previous king of Morocco. Have you heard of Hassan II, king of Morocco between 1961 and 1999? He said something about Morocco that is very interesting. He said Morocco is like a tree when you look at it. It has its roots in Africa, and it has its trunk in the Arab world and the Islamic world, and its branches reach out towards Europe. When you look at Morocco, when you look at the mosaic of Morocco, when you look at the history of Morocco, when you look at the culture of Morocco, at the demography of Morocco, you will understand that it's actually a tree with that kind of historically, Morocco, of course, has been first an Amazighi country, a Berber country. There were Arabs come in, there were a lot of people from Africa come in. Jews were there for a long time. They are still there, some of them. And there are Europeans who came in 20th century, but there were Spanish and Portuguese invasions since the 15th and 16th century. That's why Morocco is a mixture of a lot of things. And then when you look at it, it's a highly multicultural kind of country with languages spoken, different kinds of looks on people. You can find people as European as some of you, and others also as, mixed kind of ethnic races within Morocco. So this kind of multicultural and diversity of Morocco is what makes, if you like, the identity of Moroccans, in the sense that we have been peoples living together for a long time. The first state in the modern sense of state in Morocco goes back to the 8th century, actually. There were princedoms before then, thousands of years before then, Berber princedoms. But the real state of Morocco, as we know it, dates back to something like 1,200 years ago. So this is like a country that runs deep into history with its own culture, its own people, the languages that are spoken, and also the different kinds of traditions that have melted into a melting pot that we call Morocco or Moroccanness. It's very important to talk about this because we will be able to go back when we talk about tourism to talk about that. I don't want to bore you with the history, so let's move to Morocco today and talk to you a little bit about the political situation right now in Morocco. You know, one of the events that has really characterized the region recently over the last 3 years is what is called the Arab Spring. And the Arab Spring is young people all over the place, but they started in Tunisia and Egypt, and they rose against authoritarianism, against oppressive regimes, against the lack of perspectives for a lot of young people like yourselves who want jobs, who want education, want employment. And that kind of event actually pulverized the whole Arab world. But how did we feel that in Morocco? How did we respond to that? It did not mean that we were not affected by the Arab Spring. We were, But we are probably the only country that took that positively in a very, very interesting sense. I lived through that because at that moment I was not a minister of tourism. I was just an active militant in one of the political parties, and I was a university professor talking to young people like yourselves. But how we lived that is very interesting, and I tell you a little story before we go and then focus a little bit more on economics and on tourism. In Morocco, we felt never threatened by the Arab Spring. We saw that the demands of young people who say we want dignity, we want jobs, we want change, we want democracy are legitimate kind of changes. So we engaged in a dialogue with them. I was there in the streets of Rabat when a lot of young people like you were going out in the streets, and then I put Twitter tweets, and I wrote on Facebook, and I talked to them. They were invited to television. They were also, the media were open for them. And that created a whole dialogue. So the Arab Spring in Morocco led to a dialogue, and led also to the political elite in Morocco to take note of that, and there were changes that happened. At that year, that very year, the king called for constitutional reforms in order to respond to the demands by a lot of the young population in the streets. That's the only country in the Arab world that said, look, what you are demanding is legitimate. We agree with that. Let's put a constitution in order to respond to that. And we did that. And that constitution brought a lot of new things. One of them, for example, and we talked about languages, is we said, okay, there is Arabic language, but there is also Berber language. So we constitutionalized 2 languages in Morocco. One of the things also that we said in that constitution, let's separate the powers in Morocco, the executive from the legislative, from also the judiciary, which was very important even in Morocco. We said also, let's devolve some of the powers from the king to the government and the prime minister. Prime minister is has more powers now. Let's give more powers also to parliament. A lot of huge changes. Democratization was reinforced by that constitution. And that's why we say Morocco now is a stable country. Morocco now is on the way of democratization. But one of the things that happened and why we went through the Arab Spring peacefully, in Morocco, we call it like we did our revolution of the Arab Spring, but we did it like a peaceful revolution. You remember the peaceful revolution or the Great Revolution that happened in England in 1688, way before the French Revolution. It was like some sort of consensus between all the power players in order to make changes. We did the same thing on 2011 in a sense. But the reason why, I think there are 2 or 3 factors. One of them, we have a king who is a visionary king who wanted to transform Morocco from being the country that it was before to a country that is more open, more modern, more democratic, reformed politically, reformed also economically, playing a very important role in the Arab world and also in Africa, one of the things. The second one is like since 1999, there has been very important reforms in Morocco. The political level, on the economic level. And that's why when the Arab Spring demand came, they didn't find that this is a very exotic kind of country politically. It's very sealed hermetically like other countries that was shocked by that event. Actually, we were not shocked by that event. We embraced it and we went with it. So this is the political, if you like, the background of what is happening now in Morocco. Economically, we have been an economy that has been growing for the last probably 15 years. The GDP of Morocco has tripled in the last 15 years, and because of the economic reforms that we have been able to entertain. A middle class has sprung up in Morocco, which is a consuming middle class that is also contributing to the stability of the country. The growth rate, the average growth rate of the Moroccan economy has been between 4 and 5% over the last 15 years, and the unemployment has been reduced below 9% for over the last 6 or 7 years. Of course, the crisis that happened in the world, especially with our partners in Europe, especially with the French economy, the Spanish economy, the Italian economy, which are really very important partners for us, has affected us in one way or another. And that's why we have had to go through some very difficult times in 2012 and 2013. But now what happened is like we are balancing our budget below 5%, and we think that we're going to reach like a balanced deficit about 3% by 2016. We think that we're going to achieve a growth of 5% over this year and also next year, and we think that we're going to reduce the unemployment, especially among young people like yourselves, to probably 8%, and we are going also to create or be more involved in places like Africa in a very aggressive way. Morocco is the second investor in Africa and would like to go and do more with our African neighbors and our African friends. So the Moroccan economy, despite all the problems that exist as part of the Arab Spring, despite all the problems that exist within like among our partners in Europe, has been growing, and it will grow even faster over the next few years. It's a very highly diversified kind of economy. It's based on agriculture. There is tourism, industry, fisheries, and also other kinds of sectors. We are leading in, for example, like in aeronautics in Africa. We're leaders in the car industry in Africa. We're leaders, for example, in the chemicals in Africa. So it's an economy that is growing and growing in a sustained way, so that I think Morocco will be probably part of the emergent economies within the next few years. And tourism is contributing greatly to that development and to that prosperity. Tourism has grown tremendously over the last 15 years. And the reason why it has grown is first because since 2001, Morocco has set up a vision of where it wants to go with the tourism. So in 2001, we said we wanted to reach like 10 million tourists, and by building our seaside resorts so that we can attract as many people as possible from Germany who like the seaside resorts, who also go with tour operators. We did, and so that was a political will behind devising those kinds of strategies. Behind that strategy which was called the 2010 strategy. After that, we built another vision. And we said in 2010, yes, we have succeeded in reaching 10 million tourists. What do we want to do now? Where do we want to go from here? And so one of the things we said, we need to double the number of people who are coming to Morocco. We don't want to rely only on Marrakesh as our window on the world, as our cultural destinations. We have other kind of destinations as well. And we would like to build our seaside resorts because our initial plan did not work out as well as we wanted in the past. So we devised a new kind of strategy, which we call the Vision 2020. I would like to go into details a little bit about this vision, maybe show you a few pictures of that vision, if you can just roll some of those so that So what we would like to see is for tourism to continue to be one of the leading sectors of the economy in Morocco. The tourism employs about 500,000 people in Morocco, and tourism is the second contributor to GDP, and also tourism contributes to the balance of payment because it contributes something like 6 billion euros in terms of entry of foreign currency into the country. So it's a leading sector. It's a very important sector. So we would like that to continue happening, but we would like that to continue happening in a different way from what we have done so far. One of those things we said, well, look, Morocco is a country that is rich in terms of its cities, medieval towns, its cultures, its diversity is very important. There is not only one city, which is Marrakesh. There are like hundreds of cities, some of them even better than Marrakesh, even more interesting than Marrakesh. So we said, our cultural product, we want to diversify that. Tangier is a very important kind of city in the north of Morocco with its Andalusian heritage, which the mixture that is between Arab and Andalusian heritage and the Spanish influence on cities like Tangier and Tétouan in the north of Morocco. So that's a cultural destination by itself, with a lot of seaside resorts as part of it, and also with a very important offer in terms of business tourism as well. Fez, have you heard of Fez? Yes? Yes? So, Fez? The hat, but there is the city as well. the hat in the city, and if you wear the hat in the city, it's even like better. But Fez has been the spiritual capital of Morocco and also of the Western Islamic world for a long time. That's the city where Maimonides, have you heard of Maimonides? Maimonides is one religious, it's a Jewish religious philosopher of the Middle Ages who was based in Spain, in Andalusia of that time. He went to Fez for 5 years. His house is still there, and taught Islam to Muslims as a Jewish scholar in Arabic, and wrote some of the theology in Hebrew or in Judaism in Arabic. Very interesting kind of character. Also Ibn Khaldun, the great historian, the founder of historiography, who wrote the introduction, very famous in the 15th century, also was in Fez. Leon the Africanos, who is the great traveler from Andalusia who went to Morocco, went to Timbuktu, and then ended up in Rome, and then the Pope liked him. And he says, you look like me, you look like the Pope, but you are a little bit dark, so I'm going to call you Leon the Africanos. You are the Leon the African. And it's a very important character also who wrote books about that. So all of those went to Fez. Fez is a pilgrimage center for all the intellectual and the spiritual leaders. There is, by the way, if you are interested, every year we organize a nice festival there. It's called the Sacred Music Festival, and all the big kind of singers who do like Sufi music and spiritual music end up there. Nusrat Ali Khan, if you have heard of Nusrat Ali Khan, the great singer from Pakistan, was there before he died. So Fez is also a very important cultural capital. It's very important destination by itself. Fez is an open museum kind of city if you want to visit once. We said, okay, that's also a cultural destination. In a nutshell, what we are saying, Morocco is not only Marrakesh. Marrakesh is important, is a window of Morocco on the world, but there are other kind of destinations which are cultural. So diversify our cultural destinations in Morocco. That's number one. Number two that we want to do is we say, okay, we are on the Mediterranean, we are on the Atlantic Ocean, we have 3,500 kilometers, but we are not competitive when it comes to seaside tourism, to beach tourism. Tunisians are doing better than us. The Turks are doing better than us. The Greeks are doing better. The Egyptians are doing better because they created big resorts with big capacity on the sea so that they attract German tourists, Scandinavian tourists, and English tourists. Let's do the same thing. So that's what we are building now. We are building big resorts in Morocco, some of them on the Mediterranean for people who like the Mediterranean. The Italians love the Mediterranean, so you have to have resorts for the Italians over there. But I know the Germans like to go in winter to places where they can have the sun. So that's what we are building, sea resorts in the south of Morocco for people like the Germans, like the Norwegians, and like the Swedish. So build a capacity of 100,000 beds on the seasides of Morocco, on the beaches of Morocco. And you can come and grill there if you want to, in Agadir or south of Agadir. I know you may enjoy that. I mean, seeing the sky what it is now, and also there was even some snow last night in here in Berlin. In Marrakesh it's 26 degrees right now, by the way. And in Agadir it's 28. And then if you move south of Morocco, it's a bit close to 30%. So that's the big, and it's only 3 hours away. So that's the second thing that we're doing. The other one, and that's why I want you to look at these two, this one and this one. What you see in red is the cultural destinations of Morocco. You see in red. I'm not speaking about like Rabat and all of that because I don't want to bore you with detail. But those are, the blue ones are the predominantly seaside destinations of Morocco. But the green ones are very interesting. The green ones is where we want to develop a very ecology and sustainable. All of our vision is sustainable, and I would need to go back to that. But what we are doing in those destinations which are green is our ecotourism, which is friendly to the environment, which is not very, it's not very heavy in relation to the environment. That's where we develop most of our ecology projects. If you look down here in the south, which is the city of Dakhla in the Sahara, the city of Dakhla is the capital of kite surfing in the world. Anyone here does kite surfing or knows what's kite? You do kite surfing. Have you ever been to Dakhla? You should. You should go. There is the big event. What do they call it, Wissal? The international. Yeah, the International Championship of Kite Surfing is happening late March in Dakhla. You go there. It's the best lagoon in the world.
So, Mr. As diplomat, I'm kite surfer.
You're a kite surfer. So probably we'll have like the first diplomat kite surfer in the world in Dakhla. So if you come to Dakhla also, you'll enjoy the kite surfing. So these destinations which are green over there is the high Atlas Mountains, the Middle Atlas Mountains with the oases that go down there. By the way, one of the oases runs 200 kilometers, and it's one of the best oases. It's considered to be like World Heritage by UNESCO, because an oasis is not only trees, an oasis is lives, is people living there. And what is good about the oasis, like the Dra oasis or the Ziz oasis, is like there are different kinds of cultures living there. The Jews, people from African origins, the Berbers and the Arabs have been living there for a long time. They did some fighting in the past, but I mean now it's a nice, because they have built their kasbahs, they built like their castles over there, and it's a beautiful kind of vision over there, but you can also like see the nomadic culture, how it transformed by the sedentarization around the oasis in the south of Morocco. So those are like our nature kind of destinations. So what we did is like we said, look, we're going to add 3 cultural destinations to Morocco. We have 4 now with Marrakesh, 2 which are based on seaside, and then 2 which are based on nature and ecology. It does not mean that we're not developing like resorts, for example, in the north of Morocco. There are nice resorts there, but the predominance is for culture. It does not mean that we don't have any culture around here. If you go here, you'll find the city of Terudent, which was the capital of the Saadi dynasty in the 15th century. It's full of culture, and there are a lot of things to see there, but the predominance is, of course, for seaside tourism. So all of this is very important. So we are actually diversifying our offer because we think that the markets are very highly diversified. We know, for example, that the Germans come, they like the culture, they like nature, but predominantly there is a very much tendency to use like beaches and to go to beach destinations. So that's where we want the Germans to come over here. This is where we're building resorts. The Italians, they like the beaches as well, they like culture, so they come to Marrakesh in the center, but they come to the Mediterranean destination over there. So what we are doing, we are creating a product in order to match it with the markets. The Russians will come mostly down here because there is like a big change between Moscow and St. Petersburg, but they like also beaches, they like casinos, they like to do shopping, which is very important as well. So that's our strategy, is to diversify the offer in order to meet the demand from different kinds of markets. But it's easily said than done. In order to be able to do that, we need to raise or to double the capacity in terms of beds in Morocco. We have about 217,000 beds in Morocco in tourism. You may think that's a good number. Yes, it is, but it's not enough in order to attract 19 or 20 million tourists. So we need to double that capacity in terms of beds. So that's why we need to build 100,000 beds on the beaches and 100,000 beds on the cultural and nature and ecology level. So that's what we need to do. But if you want to do that, it's not the government who is going to do that. Who is going to do that? The investors, private sector. But in order to attract the investors, you need to give them incentives, of course. So that's what we're working on. So to give incentives to investors in order to come and then invest in Morocco. We give, for example, land for reasonable prices. We also like deduct, or we kind of exonerate them from taxes in order to come and invest in Morocco. When they do, for example, a conference kind of complex, then the government even like helps with those. We build roads that take to those resorts. So the government is putting all kinds of incentives in order to attract investors. We need to invest something like 12 billion euros. That's what we need. That's what we have envisioned from 2010 to 2020 in order to be able to create that infrastructure in order to get tourists to Morocco. That's number one. And that's a challenge, and that's what we're working on. Number two, tourists are in their markets, you have the products, but you need to bring the tourists to Morocco. So you need to have planes. You need to have planes, except from the Spanish market, south of Spain, where people can come by car or come just cross. It's 14 kilometers from Spain. All of the other markets, we need to have planes coming there. We have something like 600 flights outside of Casablanca. Casablanca is our biggest hub in Morocco. Outside of Casablanca, we have about 600 flights from all different parts of the world to Morocco. You may think that's a good number. Yes, it is good. But we need to reach 1,600 flights a week to Marrakesh, Agadir, and all the cities outside Casablanca in order to be able to lift all of those people who would like to come to Morocco. In order to reach 18 million tourists, we need to have probably something like 1,600 to 1,700 flights every week outside of Casablanca. Very important challenge. Companies, of course, airline companies, when the oil prices go down, they are encouraged to invest, and then they take risks. Because when you want to start a line from, let's say, Berlin to Agadir or to Marrakesh, you start, but there is a whole year when you are taking only 20 passengers, 30 passengers, and you are building that road. It's a very important road to build. So we come in, we give incentives, we help, and all of that. But when the prices of oil is 120 a barrel, then airline companies are not very interested in investing money in starting roads. You have to coax them into it. You have to push them to do it. You have to give them incentives in order to be able to do that. So that's an important thing. So airline, there could be no tourism and no tourism strategy without a very strong also strategy for airlifts and airlines. Very important. And number three, which is like the other challenge, is you need to make yourself known in different parts of the world. For example, like in Morocco, we are present at 80 fairs of tourism in Europe. We go to every fair that you can imagine: Moscow, Berlin, Madrid, Paris, we go to Dubai, we go to China and everywhere to talk about Morocco. And we talk about tour operators, with travel agents, with journalists, with everyone. And you need also to communicate about your destination. What is happening, for example, in the Middle East and all of that, we need to communicate and say, look, Morocco is different. Morocco is exception. Morocco is another country. Morocco is a safe country. And you need to drive home that message every time in order to say, we are different, because people mix. So Morocco is part of that world where there are all kinds of crazy things happening. So we need to go to people and say, look, yes, there are crazy things happening in some places. In Morocco, there are no crazy things that are happening. And you need to enforce that kind of message. So number three, communication, promotion, being present on the international level, talking to the real actors is very important in order to reach the clients that you want. I would like to finish by saying one thing. In Morocco, we would like to position ourselves as one of the most hospitable countries in the world, and we were rated as the third most hospitable country by the Economic World Forum, and we think we are. When you go to Morocco, everyone is saying, welcome. And that's in the culture, that's in the generosity, it's ingrained within Moroccan culture that someone who is coming is their own guest and they need to take care of that. We would like to be positioned like that. But Morocco is not only about culture, it's not only about hospitality, it's not only about the diversity of its sites. Morocco is also a modern country that has been changing, and its economy has been growing for a long time. There are two facets to Morocco. One is the traditional, one is the hospitable, one is the diverse culture, but the other one is also a very modern kind of country. This country, it's the financial hub of Africa. It's the second investor in Africa. It's a leader in renewable energies in the world. We are creating the biggest station of solar energy in the south of Morocco. So we would like that also for a lot of people to understand that Morocco is not only an exotic country, It's also, it's traditional country. It's a country that is jealous about its own tradition, but it's also a country that is changing, modernizing, creating jobs, and also helping different kinds of countries around the world, and especially in Africa, especially in West Africa, develop as well and create the real kind of growth. Thank you very much.
So, Minister Lahcen
I can
Haddad.
take a few questions, but only in Arabic.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you again for your speech. I'll open the floor. I can bring the mic over.
Thank you, sir. I really enjoyed your speech. I'm African, and I'm proud to be one.
Where are you from?
I'm from Zambia.
I love that country.
Okay. My question to you is this, sir. As Africa, as a continent, how come we don't work together to promote each other? You're talking about tourism. You're talking about attracting people from the Western nations. Do you have a package that works? Maybe people come to Morocco, then they go to South Africa. Maybe they see the Victoria Falls in Zambia. Do you have something like that? And then I want to find out, does Morocco support the African unity? Because the AU isn't as strong as the EU. Will we ever be strong?
Well, for your first question, I'm trying to do everything in order to be able to do that. By the way, for example, like the Royal Air Morocco, which is the national company in Morocco, serves about 32 airports in Africa. So we go as far as Angola. We don't do Zambia. We'd like to do that, and then we'd like also, we are even like looking into Tanzania and Kenya in order to serve all of those and bring all the Africans through Morocco so that when they are going to other places, there are about 300,000 Africans that transit through Morocco. But we are putting packages so that we can attract them to Morocco. Africans, for example, like of West Africa, mostly the majority of Muslims are interested by pilgrimage to Fez because there is a big saint called the Tijani saint that they are interested in. We're putting packages around that, and the Royal Air Morocco is putting packages in that kind of regard. There are a lot of Africans also who are interested in shopping in Casablanca. We are working on those kinds of, there are visa problems, there are also transportation problems that we need to work, but for us, we are even like opening 2 delegations, one in Dakar and one in Abidjan, and I signed with the ministers in those 2 countries, and we're going to open those. So we are very much working in Africa. I signed with my friends from Kenya, and we are interested in Eastern Africa as well. I know a lot about like African country, and I know that there is like an emergent middle class now, consumer kind of middle class. The growth that is happening in Africa is very important. I know in Zambia there has been a lot of progress, and I commend that kind of progress, and I think there is room for all of us to really benefit from that. I even encourage also like young people from my country, from Morocco, and also young businesses to go and then establish and do business in Cote d'Ivoire, in Abidjan, and other places in Mali and Conakry. For the second one, we think in Morocco that the real integration in Africa goes first and foremost through economics. And I think we need to create jobs for our African youth. We need to create like wealth for our African youth, opportunities so that people can start their own businesses. That's why all the Moroccan banks, 3 of the Moroccan banks, are investing in almost all the countries in Africa. That's why insurance companies from Morocco are present in almost all the countries in Africa. I think we need to probably a little bit go away from politics into economics. And that's where we create the opportunities for a lot of the African people. I think Africans need jobs, they need dignity, they need the creation of wealth, they need a good economic opportunity for a lot of them, for women, for youth, and that's what we are doing. And I think that's my vision, and that's the vision of Morocco, and I'm sure it's the vision also for Zambia and for other countries as well.
Thank you very much, sir. I was one of the lucky people who happened to have traveled to Morocco. I loved it very much. I'm Ugandan by origin. I live in Italy. I've been living there for the last...
Ugandan by origin?
Yes, but I live in Italy, 25 years in Italy.
And you live where?
I live in Italy for 25 years.
You're so lucky.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So
I mean, both
it's the
countries began
Mediterranean thing. So, yeah, and it was lovely. I didn't have problems with the visa. I mean, I got it, and I was there on a cooperation, cooperation program. I come from Veneto, and the region we did a joint project with the municipality of Kenitra. So I traveled there, and it was urban, urban solid waste management. And we visited Rabat, and we were received by the mayor, and he explained to us how things worked in Rabat. But in Kenitra, there was a problem, because we had part of a small community of people from the rural areas who were working on this open site dumping urban waste site. And we tried to organize them into a cooperative and so on with our local partners in Kenitra. As you said, Morocco, one of the aspects of Morocco is that this is an urbanized country now. It was 53% by then, the population living in cities. So it's from rural, it's becoming urban. So I just wanted to ask you whether something is being done also to reverse that trend of people running away from the countryside and moving towards the cities, and maybe ending also in very difficult economic situations because they don't have the support and so on, and it makes it difficult for local administrations to take care of this kind of population of people who are not really, they don't belong there, they come from elsewhere, and yeah, thank you.
Urbanization is a serious problem in Morocco as it is in other parts of the world, and I think a lot of countries, developing countries like Morocco, this is an inevitable kind of process that is happening. And I don't think you can prevent people from migrating from the rural areas to the cities, especially that a lot of post-colonial governments, they didn't invest in the rural areas, they didn't do infrastructure in the rural areas, they took care mostly of the cities, and that's what a lot of people come to the cities, because that's where there is education, there is health, and there is also access to jobs. It's only now that a lot of countries are saying, oh, the rural areas, we need to do something about it. So what we are doing in Morocco is since the 90s, we did very ambitious programs for the rural areas. One of them is electrification. So we're reaching something like 97% of access to electricity in the rural areas. We have a big program for what we call them rural roads, so that we can link communities and then make them communicate with the rest of the world and also do economic dealings with the rest of the world. We are doing that. And also to get them to have access to potable water, which is a very important thing that we're doing in Morocco. We have reached something like 80% of the rural villages where there is access to water. And you need to couple that also with schools and hospitals. So with schools, we have been very successful because we created 10,000 small schools in the rural areas of Morocco. So every kind of rural community that you can think about in Morocco, they have what we call satellite schools, which are 2-room kind of classes, and where there is a teacher that goes there, in the mountains everywhere. And then that's why a big leap in the 1990s in terms of girls' education. We used to have girls' education low, and then we did a big leap in that because we made schools accessible to girls who live in the rural areas whose parents don't want them to go very far away. So we did that. But in terms of access to health, we are doing much better. So the mortality, for example, of infant mortality has been reduced below 30 in every 1,000 kind of small children. Maternal mortality we have reduced below 100 per 100,000 kind of pregnancies. So we are doing better in terms of having the rural population get access to all of these things so that they don't see the city as attractive. But what you need to do is also create jobs in the rural areas. Of course, agriculture helps a lot, but what we are doing in Morocco and what my vision, a lot of people in Morocco's vision, is for us to diversify the economy of the rural areas if we want them to stay there. I have a whole program to develop rural tourism so that people can also have jobs in tourism, not only in agriculture. We need to develop that, and we need to think about other things in relation to energy, in relation to water, in relation to tourism, in relation to agriculture, so that we diversify the economy, create jobs for the rural areas. If we do that, I think we can keep people away from migrating to the city. Other than that, I think there is not much you can do about a tendency for a lot of people to want to live in the cities. There are more people.
So I think we have time for one more question. I got a sign from back there, so.
Well, there are
to
two
pass there
people, so
first.
maybe if you can.
Should
have
we
quick
collect them?
Yeah,
or-
and one, two, and three, okay?
Should I collect them together?
Collect them together
Okay,
and then I
okay,
do
then
one
we do it
response.
like that.
You will help me remember, yes?
Well, thank you for your speech. I have had the pleasure to visit Morocco a couple of years ago. I went to Marrakesh. But my question is, how do you improve the safety of female tourists? Because I was there with some female friends, and we got a lot of nasty comments when we were walking on the street. It's a beautiful country, but that sort of put us off a little bit. So I was wondering how you could work with that.
Yeah, okay. So harassment, remember we said harassment of girls.
Good day, sir. Thank you for your beautiful presentation. My name is Dennis. I'm from the Netherlands. And my question regards the Moroccan diaspora. Moroccan has about 38 million inhabitants, of which roughly 10 to 15% lives outside of Morocco, most of them in Europe. Netherlands is a very good case for this, as the mayor of one of our major cities, Rotterdam, Ahmed Abu Talib. Yes. Do you see a specific role for diaspora in the world, Moroccan diaspora, when it comes to tourism development? Thank you.
I'm Ehtisham from Pakistan. You referred about the economic reforms you introduced in your country, with which the economic growth increased triple time. What were those economic reforms?
What are the economic reforms that we introduced? Yes, yes. Okay, just about the harassment, it's a reality, I know. It exists within Morocco, but it's not typical for foreigners visiting Morocco. Moroccan women and girls are also, some of them are harassed in the streets. So it's a social phenomenon before it becomes any kind of phenomenon, just with regard to foreign women. So there is a lot of education that we need to do, and there are like associations and organizations which are doing that kind of work. And we are also like, there is a law that is going to be passed with regard to harassment and to sexual harassment and street harassment. So we are aware of that. A lot of Moroccans are aware of that. It's not just like tourism, it's about the whole population. So my daughter, who is 26 years old, I've seen, I mean, she told me about like scenes where she was also harassed in the streets. It's a sad phenomenon. It's a phenomenon about like people looking at their masculinity and also like questioning that, and then coming to terms with the fact that women exist in the public space. It's a very interesting kind of learning that needs to happen, and there is an awareness raising that happens with, of course, like the laws that need to be passed in order to do that. And for the Moroccan government, it's a priority that we're looking into. With regard to diaspora, and I also appreciate like what Netherlands do in terms of integrating the foreign population, especially Moroccans living in Netherlands. Some of them are citizens of the Netherlands, and there is like a very successful story to be told there about the Netherlands integrating its migrant population. There is a very important role that they could play. I'm going to tell you a story about like the Turks in Germany. The Turks in Germany have played a very important role in promoting Turkey in Germany, but not only promoting it, but also creating businesses that deal with Turkey as a destination. They create tour operators, they create travel agencies, communication agencies, and they take a lot of Germans to visit Turkey. We would like our diaspora to play that kind of role. So that's what I'm thinking. It's a grand plan for a lot. We have like millions of people living in France, in Belgium, in Netherlands, about 180,000 living here in Germany. They live also in other places. We would like them to play that very important role, and I think it's something that we would like to talk to them about. They are already investing in Morocco, coming to Morocco, contributing to the economy of Morocco through their remittances, but I think we would like to make those remittances into a source of investment, a source of help in their own country. With regard to the economic reforms, I mean, like a lot of the reforms concern, for example, the improving the business climate in Morocco. So, for example, like the year, when we started about like 15 years, it used to take 2 months in order to create a business. Now it takes you 2 days in Morocco in order to create a business. Very important. We also reduced the pressure, the fiscal pressure. Taxes that you pay, it used to be 25% when you put all of those taxes that you pay. We reduced that tremendously. Whether it's taxes on revenue, taxes, corporate taxes, we kind of unified the VAT as well, so it's a less important pressure on the businesses in order to function. Number three, for example, with regard to registration of property, it used to take forever in order to register property. We're reducing the number of months it takes in order to reduce that kind of element. We have also improved the investment code, and then what kind of things we need to do in order to help investors. Like there are all kinds of tax rebates if you create your own project, and also kind of tax exonerations if you import stuff for your own project. All of those economic reforms we have done in Morocco. So it's all about like improving the business climate, improving the investment climate in Morocco, and we reviewed most of the customs code, the investment code, the fiscal code, all of that in order to improve. Those are economic reforms that the operators have been asking for, and that's why there is a lot of interest in Morocco as an investment kind of opportunity. Thank you very much.